What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back with another strategy video. This one, we got the RB0 strategy, something I use in almost every single one of my drafts because I believe it's the best way to draft. A lot of people shy away from it because they want to build out their whole team. They want to have their quarterback, their tight end, everything filled out and then go to the bench. And I'm here to tell you that is horrible. You do not want to do this. Look at these two teams and tell me which one you want. Would you rather have A.J. Green, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, and Keenan Allen starting for you every week, or the team on the right? Now, if you look at the first couple picks, you might say, oh, they look pretty even. But like I'm going to show you in a couple minutes, the benches aren't even close. RB0 gives you the strongest bench, and a lot of people disregard that when they're drafting. Benches are very, very important, okay? Very important. Every single year, there are picks that just don't work out. Third round, generally speaking, picks are terrible. And I don't know why this is. There's a big drop-off after the first two rounds. You got to kill it in the first two rounds. That's also a reason for RB0. But the third round, everyone thinks, oh, it's my third-round pick. He's going to be great. Every year in the third round, production drops significantly. If you look back at your third-round picks each year, a lot of them you might have dropped, or they just might not have even started for you at the end of the year. So a team that you draft and you think is safe, a lot of times isn't. That's why you need a strong bench, because those are the players you might be starting towards the end of the year. I remember last year I drafted Melvin Gordon in like my last pick of the third round. I dropped him by the end of the year. So I may have gone into the draft or out of the draft thinking, oh, I've got my running back positions locked up here. Well, you don't. And running backs in particular, that's why you do RB0, are the weakest position early in the draft. They generally speaking, they have the highest attrition rate definitely because they generally speaking touch the ball more than anyone else on the team, meaning they get injured a lot more, and they get replaced more often than star wide receivers. You don't see Julio Jones, Antonio Brown, Odell. They're not getting replaced. They might get hurt. It's possible. They're going to get hurt at a lesser rate, but they might get hurt. But running backs get straight up replaced, even first round running backs. So look at these two teams. RB0 on the left. Another thing with RB0 is you wait on quarterback. You wait on tight end. You wait on everything. I showed you in that last slide. My last 4 picks were quarterback, tight end, defense, kicker. That's what you need to do in every single draft. You can get Kirk Cousins. You can get Stafford. You can get Winston in the 13th and 14th rounds and be perfectly fine. You can get Tyrod Taylor there too. Perfectly fine. So in all of the other picks up until then, you take wide receivers and running backs, but you take wide receivers early because those are the guys that are just more consistent. You need a consistent team, okay? I'm not talking 60 yards every game. I'm talking guys that don't get replaced, don't get hurt, guys that are consistently out there producing points for you. Look at these two teams. A.J. Green on the left. A.J. Green, Allen Robinson, Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen are my wide receivers. That's a very solid core, but I can tell you right now, it's entirely possible that one of them doesn't end up starting for me at the end of the year. But as you'll see in a second, it doesn't matter because when I go RB0, my bench is dominant. Okay, I have wide receivers galore on my bench that I could plug and play every week, and every week I could play the matchups. I could see who's playing a terrible defense and play them. So every week I have a ton of points for my wide receivers, but running backs don't need to be that great. And you know what? They're not terrible. Because if you wait on running back, you can get DeMarco, a former rushing champion. You can get Melvin Gordon, a guy that he's a number 1 in a team that doesn't have a good defense, who they want to be the guy who wasn't terrible last year. If you look at his numbers, they look horrible. But as a pure running standpoint, he was a rookie behind an awful offensive line that had no other weapons. What do you expect? So you load up on these guys later that have a chance to go off instead of taking Lamar Miller and McCoy early. So you look at these benches. On the RB0 team, let's say Amari Cooper or Keenan Allen, one of those two, doesn't have that great of a year, which I think they will, but they don't have that great a year. I've got Devontae Parker. I've got John Brown. I've got Kevin White. One of them is bound to go off and produce maybe high-end number 2 numbers that I'm having as my number 4. Kevin White on this team is my number 7 wide receiver. How many teams can you say that Kevin White's your number 7? And then you look at the running backs. They're not even terrible. Ivory, Sims, Coleman. You can get guys super, super late that are going to produce fine numbers. But you look at the value-based team. It doesn't have a deep bench. Bernard's good, Sims is good, but I could have gotten them in the RB0 team. I just happened to get a different one. I mean, Ivory and Bernard, you can basically have them even in both of these drafts. I think I got them in the same round. But you look at the wide receivers that are backing up on the RB or on the value-based team, Lockett, Dorsett, Thomas, those guys aren't going to be able to produce right away. And if you look back at the team that was drafted there, looking at the value-based team, I'm starting a running back in the running back wide receiver spot, which you never want to do, but I'm forced to because I don't want to start Lockett there. I'm actually starting Kevin White in this value-based team, who's my number 7 wide receiver in RB0, as my flex. So now the value isn't there as much. Because on the RB0 team, Kevin White can take time to develop. If he goes off, he goes off, but if he doesn't, he doesn't. It doesn't really matter with my team. But he has to do good because he's my flex spot in the value-based team. So you don't have as much depth if you just do a value-based drafting where you're filling up your roster, you're taking tight ends, you're taking quarterbacks, taking running backs early. The wide receiver depth isn't there, and the wide receiver is the most important position in fantasy football. People overlook that way too much. It is by far the most important position. You need to load up on this. This is a standard league that I drafted this in. In PPR, if you don't take a wide receiver with your first 4 picks, I don't know what you're doing. You need to take wide receivers. It doesn't matter that you're filling up your bench because every single year you think you're safe and you're not. And that's another thing with value. This value-based team, you think with this team you're safe at running back because you had Lamar Miller and LaShawn McCoy. But you know what? Both of those guys, I can bet you right now one of them is going to get hurt or one of them is not going to produce what you think. So you thought you drafted running backs early, you didn't have to get anyone late. You know what? You were wrong. Because if Lamar Miller goes down, now you're forcing Lewis to be your number 2. In a team that you disregarded the wide receiver position kind of early, you're low on wide receiver. If one of your star running backs gets hurt, this team is toast. Because now you're starting Lewis as your 2, and you're forced to start Bernard every week. Whereas, you know what? If my running back gets hurt and the other team, I just throw Sims or Ivory in there. But it doesn't matter because my wide receivers are producing such large numbers every week that I only need a few points from them every time. And so you hear me talking about safety. Safety is the biggest thing about RB0. Look at the data from 2015. Of the top 7 running backs drafted on average, 1 finished inside the top 10 in standard scoring. 1. They were 1 for 7. So let's say you loaded up on running backs early, you picked 2 of the top 7 guys. You thought you were safe at the running back position. You weren't. But of the top 7 wide receivers drafted, 4 finished in the top 10. So that's not, it's not a ton better. Well, it's 4 times better. You had over a 50% chance of landing a top 10. Now you look, the top 4 running backs drafted, top 4 running backs, 1 finished in the top 25. You thought if you grabbed 2 of the top 4 running backs last year, you thought, oh, I just dominated this league. Only 1 of them finished in the top 25. You wait on the running back position. This next bullet point I'm about to show, some people might not like this, but I do it every single year. So if I say a team took a running back with the first pick, they finish in 7.8th place on average. If you took a wide receiver with the first pick, 5.8th place. That was based on my money league that I'm in. It's a 12-team standard scoring league. Yes, it's anecdotal and there are outliers every year. But, as I'm about to show you, the exact same thing happens in 2013, 2014, and 2015, which is what I have data on every single year. I'm going to show you these same bullet points for each year to try and show you that it's not just one year. Yes, last year was an aberration. It's probably not going to happen again that all of the top guys for running backs just get hurt or replace everything. But as you see in 2014, of the top 10 running backs drafted, only 6 finished in the top 20. In the top 20, not the top 10, the top 20. But of the top 10 wide receivers drafted, 8 finished in the top 20. So you say, oh, that's not much better. If every year it's a little bit better, why wouldn't you take the safer option at wide receivers, who honestly generally score more points anyways? You also look, teams that took a running back with the first pick averaged 7.3rd place. Teams that took a wide receiver with the first pick averaged 4th place. It's better every single year. Now, you look to the data in 2013, and it's more of the same. Of the first 4 running backs drafted, 2 finished in the top 35. Do you know how easy it is to finish in the top 35 as a running back? It's really easy. You need like 30 rushing yards a game. Okay, catch a couple balls. In standard scoring, it is not hard to finish the top 35 in running backs. Of the top 4, 2 did in 2013. Of the top 4 wide receivers drafted, all of them finished in the top 7. It is so much safer to pick a wide receiver, and yet in 2013, no one picked a wide receiver with their first pick. So in 2013, you could have drafted 2 of the top 4 wide receivers, and they both finished the top 7. You probably won. So you need to pick wide receivers with those early picks. I'm going to pull up these teams here one more time just to show you. The starters for the RB0 team are better, and the bench is far better. You need to wait on quarterback until the 12th round. I believe there's 15 rounds. So 14, 15, defense, kicker. 12 and 13, quarterback, tight end. Do this in every single one of your leagues. Don't be the guy that takes Cam Newton or Rodgers in like the first or second round. It's just stupid. Do RB0. Generally, I like to do wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver. First 4 rounds. Then maybe grab maybe the next 2. One of them is going to be a running back because you want to get one okay running back. And then the next one just value-based. Either do a running back or a wide receiver. But don't be afraid to fill up your bench because you want safety in the bench. You don't want, if someone gets hurt, your team is screwed in value-based. Because if Keenan Allen gets hurt, you need to start Kevin White as your 2. He's your number 7 in RB0. Okay? It's so much safer to pick the wide receiver position. So take a ton of them and then just take shots on running back. Because you know what? If one of those running backs I drafted in RB0 turns into number 1, which happens every year, guys late turn into number 1s. You look last year, Devonta Freeman turned into, I believe, the number 1 scoring running back. But every year there's guys on waiver wire. And that's another thing with this RB0. It's waiver wire. So if you take shots on the running backs late, all you got to do is scout the waiver wire for this year's CJ Anderson, this year's Freeman, this year's Justin Forsett from a few years ago, or Alfred Morris from a few years before that, Zach Stacy. Guys that just pop up out of nowhere that are RB1s by the end of the year. You just scout for those guys. Don't even bother looking at the wide receivers because you're so stacked there. Because number 1 wide receivers don't just generally come out of nowhere. It happens once in a very long time. But if you grab one of those running back 1s that just pops up out of nowhere, you look at this team. Imagine adding this year's Devonta Freeman to the RB0 team. You've got Devonta Freeman plus one of Murray or Gordon, plus Robinson, Green, Cooper, Allen, plus your monster bench for wide receivers. It's just so much safer to draft RB0. I don't know why more people don't do it. So that's the end of the video. Hope you liked it. If you watched this far, you really somewhat liked it. Hit that like button. Subscribe if you're new. I post the mock draft Mondays every Monday, obviously, and then the 2 tip videos later points in the week. If you guys didn't watch that last video, make sure to hit it. Make sure to watch it. It's a subscriber league. Write a comment in there to try and join the league. And that's the end of the video. Thanks for watching.